So here we go, number 28, the Darkness to Light Godcast, and holy, where to even begin? Holy moly, holy God, Jesus Christ, what a week it's been. It's been since really last weekend. I'm recording this on the Wednesday, and since last weekend the world was turned upside down. Not just for me, but for a lot of people. It's been a heavy 4 or 5 days. It's something that has been hugely challenging to me in so many different ways. I have had to really take a good look what it is that I'm doing with this work, the role that I play within, the work that I'm trying to do, the mission that I'm on. It's brought up a lot of stuff with my own history, which has been heavy going, and it's also obviously brought up a lot of stuff in a lot of people, which even the way that it happened wasn't, when I now know how it all came together and how it came out, and the way that things unfolded. When I'm looking back from now, would I've chose it? Well, there's nothing you can do now because it's out. But as much darkness and stress and worry and just drama and horribleness that's came out of this, there's also been a lot of revelations and light that's come out of it as well. I have been seeking counsel since the weekend with my inner circle, with my team, the people that I'm close to within this work. The Vortex now and what we're doing, it's not just about me. Obviously I'm the kind of figurehead, I'm at the front of it. It's obviously, my work the last 28 years, my programme, it's me that's talking and doing the work and taking it to the world. But there's also people that are investing their time, free of charge, most of them, that I now really have to take stock of what I'm doing and my behaviour and the way that I'm doing things. That's something that I've struggled with in the past, when I've stood beside anybody. I remember when I was made an admin for Heal Scotland, and it was just like, do what you want, you can do this with us, and it was like, I never did anything. But at the same time, the posts and the stuff I was putting up for the Vortex, because it was me and I spoke for myself, then it was dead easy. But the minute there's other people and good people that are run about me just now within the Vortex, that are here for the long haul, then I need to be very aware, as well as the my students and the people that are in the programme, those that are buying into my work and buying into me and buying into this way of living. Then there's more at stake than just me, so I'm very aware of that. And it brings up the question of what is my role within all of this? What am I doing? What's the point? Is it worth it? All the kind of questions have been coming up. And again, I've swung between both ways of, no, it's not, and it's not my job. And then on the other hand, there's the other side where you absolutely feel like you need to, that there's nothing you can do about it. Somebody needs to do something about it. So at that point, when nobody else seems to be saying anything, then, for whatever reason, off the back of the last Godcast that I put out, which was called Authenticity, and the podcast went out, and the podcast, I've always believed in my work is getting shadow banned. When you start talking about God and start talking about solutions and start talking about the way and how to help people and the light and how to switch off your nervous system, how to sleep properly and how to meditate and how to reconnect back to the divine and how to heal yourself, then obviously the internet doesn't really like that stuff and doesn't want that stuff. It wants the drama and the fight and or the horribleness of this world for many reasons. I'm not going to get into that just now, but there's very specific reasons as to why they love that, the owners and the powers that be, why they love that stuff, because it more or less, breaking it right down, it keeps it going. When you're shining a light on how bad it is and how the darkness and all the horrors of the world, then that keeps it going. When you put your attention on that, then it makes it bigger. And I have really kind of, over the last probably 7 or 8 years, I came across this truther stuff back in probably 8-9 years ago now, and it broke my heart. It really did. It really did. When I saw the challenges that we faced with paedophilia and sex trafficking and things like what's going into the sky with the contrails, the chemtrails, what's in the water, the food, the healthcare industry, medicine. with the origins of that, the banking system. I looked into it all. I remember for about a year and a bit, it almost broke me because I remember realising one day when I really I was sitting in meditation, I thought, geez, every single thing that I believe to be true is wrong. All of it, every bit of it. I saw through, the whole thing. And back then there was a lot more evidence online. A lot of it's gone now. But there was a lot more kind of documented and documentaries of people like giving evidence as to the way of the world and the history of the world and all that kind of stuff, So I got to a point where I really didn't believe anything, no matter what it is. You become, not a truther, but or a conspiracy theorist, but you become a seeker of the truth. That's what it's all about for me. It's the truth, isn't it? What is the truth? That was my question in 1996. Number one, who am I? And number two, what the fuck is this all about? That was my two questions. So you're always seeking the truth, and it's very difficult to discern truth from falsehood. I was watching Dr. Hawkins this morning, one of my teachers, who, he was talking about, he's now passed, God bless his soul, and may he rest in love and light. What an advanced spiritual teacher. The gift that he gave to the world was the ability to basically tell the difference between truth and falsehood. And I'm going to try and explain it on here. I understand it, but I don't teach it because of the level that he's basically, his life's work. And he basically explains, the ability to go in and through the use of kinesiology, which is never ever wrong when it's done properly, and you use again, you need to be of a certain level of consciousness so you can tap into the field of consciousness, and then you're able to ask questions in a very specific way that you can determine whether something is truth or a lie, or truth and not truth, as he puts it. It's a wee bit complicated, but there is a way to basically, to find out anything that has ever been is recorded in consciousness. So there is a way to go in and see if something is a truth or lie, and that's what this is all about for me, is finding the way and the truth, and trying to get it back to the way that it's meant to be. And for the last wee bit, I think, for me, the whole stuff with Wim Hof and the way that I've been having a go at him, but I've not been having a go at him just for the sake of it. Again, I don't like to fight. I really don't. I don't like confrontation. There's a spiritual side of me, Jim. The experienced enlightenment and sits in meditation every single day, has done for the last 27 years, 28 years. The stuff that I teach, which is all about self-awareness and love and compassion, so we can heal the world. And at the same time, there's the other side to me that grew up on a building site, and has a real kind of strong, I suppose, moral compass as to what's right and what's wrong. And there's a line that when I cross, then I can easily switch from the spiritual guy and straight back into the human being. And especially with this subject that I'm going to talk about today, that's one of the challenges that I face with Wim, is when he doesn't take responsibility for all the stuff that's going on just now. There's an alleged 34 deaths because of people using the Wim Hof method, and then my own direct experience of him, when he's on talking about love and light and rainbows and unicorns and God, and at the same time he's vulgar and just repulsive, and the sexual stuff, it turns my stomach. As does all of that stuff, it always has, and I think that's because of my own experiences, with the stuff that I experienced at different times in my life, over sexualisation, and then, at different points and different stages, the things that I went through, then obviously I've got a really strong, not just an opinion, but feelings towards that entire subject. It's something that, when I see someone, being exploited or taken advantage of, or being used for someone else's sexual gain, that's something that I absolutely have a huge challenge with. And I remember going to one of my teachers a long time ago and asking him, what do I do about this? Because the video that I put out was mainly about 2 or 3 different people. It was me talking about how coaches, and one in particular, how when you know him personally the way that I do, and this goes way back to before he was a coach, and anybody who knows him will say this about him, he is that guy. You would call him in the west of Scotland a shagger, which is just a horrible term, but that's what he's known as. He can't help himself. It's one of the guys. I grew up with people like that. One of my close friends was like that, and then I saw it you know, as I became older, different parts of my family, extended further away family, where some of them were just like that. They couldn't resist, you know, cheating on wives, and you know, it's something that I never ever really, I never saw that growing up with my dad, and I certainly don't have it. I always thought it was like a bad gene. My brother's the same. He doesn't have that. You know, he's married and he's in love, and the kind of, you know, the whole family unit is something that we grew up with, and you know, things like, you know, promiscuity and sex, you know, at that animalistic level. It's something that I've always struggled with, probably a wee bit of prude, maybe because of my Catholic upbringing, I don't know. Maybe because of the home that I grew up in, which was only goodness, I don't know. But for whatever reason, you know, I just don't have it, and it's something that's always troubled me. You know, and I never named anybody within it. I've mentioned Wim because of the stuff that Wim's done, but there was another couple of individuals that I was really having a go at without naming them. And really because, one, is it really my work to basically name them and call them out, because of awe of what comes with that, and I know now what comes with that. You know, when you, as I did last week, and when the podcast went out, but when the reel went out, the reaction to it, you know, the response that happened very, very quickly. You can really see where people are. That was a wee bit of, not a shock to the system, because you know what you're dealing with. But at the same time, it becomes very real very, very quickly. And you know, the podcast that I put out, again, no many people are watching them, but at the same time, the reels that are getting taken from the podcast, they're very, very different. Number one, because they're taken out of context. You know, so if you watch the entire podcast, or the Godcast, as I put it out last week with authenticity, and you start to see where I'm coming from, you know, my own experience, my own history, the challenges that I faced, the subject as a sexual predator when I was 15 years old, as a, you know, a groin strain down at Motherwell Football Club, and the physiotherapist, John Hart, he's dead now, God hopefully rest his soul. But it was like you picture a stereotypical paedophile, and that was this guy. You know, and he never raped me or done, but he had a good go, and as he did with, I know, another few of the boys that were in there. So I was able to, you know, whatever, navigate my way through that. But I've also dealt with sexual stuff at different stages of my life, and you know, when you think about, you know, the way that the reel came out. Now that I know how it came out, because it wasn't meant to come out, I certainly would never have put that together and just put it out the way that it went out, because that was a direct, like, an attack, you know, and like naming somebody without naming them. I would never have done that. You know, the intention, even with the Godcast, before I do it, I'm not sitting down here and basically thinking, right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take him out. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Last week when I did it, you know, I was very much off the back of the virus that I'd had for 4 weeks. I was a wee bit kind of cranky and angry, and I saw a couple of things online that I didn't like. And I sat down, you know, with the intention of talking about being an authentic teacher and the significance of getting around about people that are the real deal, so that you can find, you know, the best teacher for what you need. And then it just started coming through me, and that to me has been in alignment. That to me has been in the flow. When that stuff comes through, I never ever get in the way of it. And I've never watched any Godcast except the one that Michael and Ferm are on. The Squadcast, that's the only one I watch. I don't watch myself ever, and very often, in fact almost always, when I speak, whether it's on stage or doing a class or whether it's doing this stuff, I can't really remember anything that I've said. It seems to come through me, and 99.9% of the time, in fact I would say probably 100% of the time, it's always right. I never question it. You know, my intention is to serve the light. My intention is to serve God. In fact, this Godcast is called A Soldier of God, which is what I believe I am. My devotion to God, my devotion to the truth, my devotion to the light, my devotion, you know, to the way of being and living in this life. It's all about that, you know, it's all about what's right and what's wrong. You know, so I never ever question, I never go back in and look at it and say, what did I say? How could I have done that better? I always trust in the process. I have faith and in terms of what my intentions are, you know, with all of this work, and allow it to come through me, and then that's it, done and dusted. So when I did the Godcast and I sent it away, it goes to 2 different places. One, the Godcast goes up on YouTube, the entire unedited, and then there's a team of 3 that basically puts the reels together. And you know, when Thursday night, I think it was, and again, I'm not on TikTok, I don't watch TikTok, I've never been on TikTok. It's just no for me. I don't spend a lot of time. I'm on YouTube in terms of for my own self. There's a couple of things that I watch on YouTube. I'm interested in vintage watches. I'm interested in like old kind of vintage bicycles, so I watch stuff like that. But in terms of any other stuff, I watch spiritual teachers. I listen to David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins. You know, I'll occasionally listen to Wayne Dyer. If I'm reading something, you know, if that calls me to tune into him, a wee bit of maybe Joe Dispenza on occasion. I haven't listened to him for a long time now, but you know, I'm not on social media. You know, I post in the morning time. I don't really follow anybody. There's a few within our circle, but in terms of like tuning in to see where the world is, I do that now and again just to see how bad it is. But at the same time, I don't spend any real time. Certainly not on TikTok. You know, so by the time it came to Friday afternoon, the reel that went up. And the title of it again was about a sexual predator, you know, and this is where you know you need to be really kind of careful. When I used that word, the intention behind that, and this is where you know you need to understand what the term is for a predator. I've actually got it here. I've got it as a screenshot. So. What does being a predator mean? This is from the Oxford English Dictionary. Inclined or intended to injure or exploit others for personal gain or profit. What is predatory behaviour? Inclined or intended to injure or exploit others for personal gain or profit. Okay, so that makes sense. Then you go to that word there, exploit. What does exploit mean? An exploit means make use of a situation in a way considered unfair or underhand. You know, and then so at that point, when you use the word sexual predator, I'm not talking about a rapist. I'm not talking about somebody who's drugging people and using, you know, like that kind of method. I'm not talking about somebody hiding in the bushes and jumping out and, you know, like, but you consider a predator, you know, on their prey, like in for the kill, like an animal. That wasn't the intention behind it. It was really that definition of it. You know, when you're using your position, you know, to exploit someone who is in a position of vulnerability. So even although the way people took, you know, the word, and again, I did not put the clip up, and I take full responsibility for it. Of course, it was out of the Godcast, but the way that Opus put it together, the way that it takes the wheels off the clip, off the Godcast, then obviously it sensationalises that. And you know, for whatever reason, never named the specific person that was talking about. And interestingly enough, the lad who put the reel up, excuse me, I'm still fighting this virus a wee bit. He didn't know and doesn't know the man that I was talking about. And, you know, he basically made the clip and couldn't get it out. You know, tried to put it out on was it a Thursday night and couldn't get it out. And then woke up on the Saturday morning and it went bananas. You know, it went really kind of through the roof. Between the Thursday and the Friday was probably 20 or 30,000 views. And I can't mind who I got on about it, but basically whether it was a message or whatever it was. But I basically spoke to him and it didn't feel right for the beginning. It just didn't feel right for me, and I always go with my feelings. And then the question was like, right, that's a real, almost like an attack, which I don't like to do. As I said, I do not like confrontation. I don't want to, that's not my job. My job isn't to basically call people out like that, and by name anyway. I suppose the intention, as it has been with the shots that I've had at one or two individuals in the past, is to probably hope that somebody who's been affected negatively basically has the balls to go to the police or to confront them, you know, so that they're held accountable. And even again, is that really my role to be doing that? Maybe maybe no. I don't know. I'm trying to work that out, you know, whether it's worth it. And there's two sides to that argument as well. You know, so I spoke to the man that basically put it up, and by that point, there was people being named. Now, when they go up, again, the comments and what people think, that's not really what I'm doing here. This seems to me, or it's always felt to me, like it's like almost like a public service announcement. I'm basically giving my take on it. You can take it or leave it, you know, because what people think, so few people can understand it. I get that, but the stuff that I'm talking about, it sounds mad to a lot of people, but it's my truth, and it's stuff that I've worked out over the last almost 3 decades, you know, in terms of the meditation and the divinity, and I know where the rest of the world is. So in terms of what other people think of it, what their comments are, I'm not really interested. I don't get caught up in the comments, normally because you end up in a fight, and what it does is it takes you from the higher levels that I'm trying to stay in. I'm trying to stay in the light, and then before you know it, you're in the middle of a kind of a shitstorm. You're fighting people and trying to prove your point and trying to like make you right and them wrong. And that doesn't work with this stuff. You know, it's really for those who are ready for it, those who are looking for it. That's the only way that it's ever worked. You know, so when I spoke to the man that put it up, people were starting to be named individually. There was more than one. There was 2 or 3 people starting to be named. And there was also loads and loads of private messages coming in through TikTok basically saying that this is a problem because there are people within these industries, and when I'm talking about these industries, I'm talking about when somebody comes in for some sort of help. You know, that could be a yoga teacher, that could be like a life coach, that could be someone who's teaching meditation, it could be a counsellor, really somebody in a professional capacity that's basically someone's coming in who's no doing so good, who's probably struggling, possibly with mental health, you know, on every, whether it's anxiety, depression, all the way up to, you know, all the heavier stuff, up to all to suicidal, and they're looking for somebody to give them help. And, you know, straight away, you know, the positive messages that were coming in, I didn't really pay too much attention to the different people that are being named. Because straight away I'm thinking, well, if people are being named, you know, again, is that karma? Like, how does that work? You know, is that, what's the role? And I didn't even consider really switching the comments off, if I'm honest with you. But also all of the positive stuff that was coming in terms of women that had been affected negatively, and, you know, people that knew, and it was all males. You know, it was males, and I'm not saying that women don't do this. Obviously they do, and I would imagine they do. But obviously the male position within this, and the females need to understand the role that they play in this. I'm not saying that they're completely innocent, the ones that get on about this, but, you know, the people that are being affected by it, the ones that are obviously doing it, it's obviously a problem, you know. So at that point we decided to let it run, and I never really thought much about it. You know, it was out there and it was going, and again, I don't watch TikTok, but later on that night I had a real kind of feeling that something wasn't right. I had a meditation late on the Friday night, and I felt terrible, and I could really feel as if I was under threat, as if something bad was going to happen. And, you know, I sent a message to a couple of people, that 2 in particular are like protectors to me. I've worked with all types of individuals, and obviously, you know, when you do this kind of work and you work with the people that I've worked with, then there's people who have literally saved their life with this work, and there's people who know the good that I'm trying to do, and there's people who know my intentions isn't to fight and to cause trouble and to cause drama and to cause stress. And there's a good few of them that I've said to me, if you ever get into trouble, you know, from the streets, then, you know, we can help you. We're there to protect you, because they can see the work that I'm doing. And I went to bed on the Saturday night, and I sent a couple of messages to, you know, my inner circle, and a couple of people that would be seen as probably protectors to me, just to see where I stood. And I went to bed, but I just didn't feel right. There was a real disturbance within the force. I could feel it, and I knew it was coming, and I wasn't looking forward to it, because I knew the magnitude and the scale. And then I woke up 3:30 on the Saturday morning, and I'd missed calls from a couple of people, one that's connected to me, who'd basically received a threat on the Friday night, like warning me that if I didn't get it down, then I was basically done. And also from somebody else, a direct message into, you know, the Vortex group, looking to speak to me, somebody who I basically blocked a couple of years ago because of the line of work that he's in. Let's just leave it at that. And so I knew straight away, and also his connection to one of the people I was talking about. So I knew straight away that the shit had hit the fan, and I knew, and I wanted to know whether, you know, where I stood, you know, whether I was under threat. And it turns out that I was under threat. You know, there was basically threats being made indirectly upon my life, which was something I never had before within this work, and obviously something that I took very, very serious. And obviously there's not just me to think about, but there's, you know, my wife and my children, and, you know, then you're kind of at the point where you're right, okay, what do I do here? You know, so I came in here on Saturday morning, and I made 2 videos, and I documented the full thing. I documented the individual I was talking about, my entire history with him, you know, how I got on about him, how he got on about me, more specifically, what I gave him, how, you I helped him, with this work, and helped him go from working normal employment into becoming like a professional coach, and all the help. I coached him every day for nearly 18 months. And all the help that I gave him, even his first ever programme that he put together, the stuff that he did, I basically, and I texts and emails and stuff, basically saying before, this is your stuff that I'm teaching. I said, it's okay, it's fine, like go and use it. He was ready at that time, which I wasn't, to go and take it to the world. So I was okay with that. So I documented the whole thing, and then I made a separate video, basically documenting the threats and the people that threatened me. And I sent them all to my team, the timeline as to what had happened, and just in case anything happened to me, which again is just a nightmare, just the stress I was under, and no fear, but just kind of concern, for my immediates. That was my biggest concern. What I went through with the police over in Ibiza, and my own martial arts training, and the beatings that I've had. I'm okay with that. When people start to talk about weapons and what they're going to do to you, then it becomes a different thing when your life is really under threat. So that was hugely challenging. So I made the videos early Saturday morning, and basically 4 o'clock in the morning I was in here, and sent them to my team just as a protection. And then by first thing on the Saturday morning, one of the people that I'm, who's connected to all of that, basically told me what had happened the night before, and how they had stopped, anything happening to me that night. And at that point it became very real, because I was under threat. And that was hugely challenging. It really was. That wasn't pretty. And if you ever see the videos, which I hope you don't, that I made, you could see the stress that I was under. I watched a wee bit the first couple of minutes, and I didn't look well. And really until yesterday, I haven't been well with this. It's been a hugely negative effect on me. And can I try to keep it to myself and go through it myself, and at the same time learn the lessons as I've been going through it, in my position within it, and what did I do? Did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? There's been all of that. There's been every side of it. There's so much at stake here, and it's a really serious subject. So all of that, and then in through the weekend into Saturday, where the threat to take it down. What do you do? Do you buckle? Do you fold? Do you allow them to win? Or do you stand your ground and speak your truth? And at that point, the reason I made the decision to take it off TikTok was purely because of the way that it felt. I didn't like the way that it went up. Now, do I regret that it went up? Probably not, because of all the goodness that's came out of it, all the light and the possibilities for a solution to this that came out of it. But at the same time, the amount of distress that it caused, and the anguish and the pain and the damage that it was doing when people have been named individually, then at that point, I made the decision to pull it down. And it had something like 60,000 views, inside probably 24 or 36 hours. And it was just interesting for me to watch, how all the good stuff that I'm talking about, all the light and the solutions and the answers to mental health and enlightenment and reconnecting to God and the way to get the world back on its feet, how that does next to nothing. Maybe a couple of thousand views. Some of them have done 25,000 views, but most of them are kind of fairly kind of quiet. They disappear. But the minute it's drama and you're talking about this kind of stuff, then all of a sudden, then everybody gets on about it. That was really interesting. And no surprise, the way the world is just now. So the decision was to take it down. And things kind of calmed down fairly quickly, and then it was really the autopsy, as to say, like, what the fuck just happened? How did that come out? It wasn't meant to come out. It came out. It went up. We let it run. The traction that it got, the positive messages from all sorts of, the amount of messages we got, basically, saying like, aye, this has happened to me, or well done, or this needs to be said because nobody else is talking about it, and it's obviously a problem. It's then gave me the last probably 2 or 3 or 4 days since the weekend to make my way through it, and start to kind of navigate and like, okay, where do we go from here? What do I do? Because, with this work, at some point, when you stand up for the truth and you stand up for the light, the way the world is just now, then obviously at some point it's going to come. And it's really, like, how do you deal with that? Are you prepared for it? And who you're against and who you're challenging? Obviously there's going to be a backlash from that, so there's been so many lessons in it in so many different ways. I think for me, the one thing about it is, how do you basically naming somebody a sexual predator, within this work? How do you distinguish if that's a truth or a falsehood? And the best that I've been able to come up with is really, really simple. If somebody's coming in to see you, somebody's coming into this line of work, And now, if you're working in a gym, if you're working in a call centre, if you're working in an office, if you're working in a bank, a financial institution, if you're working in a garage, if you're working in McDonald's, then, if people get together and have sex, then that's fair game. That's completely natural in the way the world is just now in terms of the sexualisation of the world. Then, go yourselves. If that's making you happy and that's what it's all about, completely fine. The challenge for me was somebody comes into this kind of environment and they're looking for help. And especially this kind of work, not just the life coaching stuff, but when it starts to become things like the spiritual stuff, at that point, then I've got huge challenges. And at that point, then that's when I start to get called into it. At that point, it very much becomes, right, okay, let's have a look and see what's going on here. And then we can make our own decisions as to whether it should be stopped or not. And the best I've come up with is very, very simple. So if somebody comes in and you strike up a relationship and it turns into a sexual relationship, if that becomes like a long-term partner, and whether you get married or you stay together for a couple of years or whatever it is, I would be okay with that. I think that's okay and it's probably acceptable. That could be one of the instances where it was meant to be, and we fell in love, whether you were doing a workshop and somebody saw you on stage, and you need to understand these people that are coming in are vulnerable. A lot of them are sick, and when they see somebody on stage, I've seen it myself, how people look at you. Not in a sexual way, but in that they kind of look up to you, and you're in this position of authority and a position of power. And with great power, as my challenge with women, with great power comes great responsibility. So at that point, there should be zero tolerance. I think if that's ever happened once, it's probably once too many. But if it did happen once, I would probably be okay with that, as long as after it was a long-term thing, it wasn't just like a fling. That would be a different thing altogether. Now, if that went to two people, I would be starting to go, wait a wee minute here, that's happened again. You're now starting to see patterns. At that point, I'll be going, right, what is the story here? How is this happening? Is this right or is it wrong? If that starts to escalate and it becomes 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 people, at that point, it's wrong. It's dead simple. At that point, then you need to look and go, wait a wee minute. Is he using this for his own sexual gain? Is he using this as a funnel to bring these vulnerable females in and basically use that to fulfill his own sexual desires? And at that point, that becomes a predator. So the question really becomes to the individual, how many has it been? Has it been one and you're still in love and you're married and it's 8 years later and you've got 2 children? God bless you. Fantastic. I owe you an apology. If it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, at that point, you owe them an apology. Dead simple. And I do believe there's a way out of this. I do believe there's anybody who's in this situation. The coaches themselves as well. Obviously, we need to look at the people that have been affected by it and the damage that's been done to them. I can only imagine the amount of people, that are going in. Some of them, their lives will literally be on the line. They'll be suicidal. They'll be in the throes of addiction. They'll be stuck with serious mental health conditions. They're on medication a lot of the time, and they go into this environment. To think that could turn into a sexual relationship, it doesn't just turn my stomach. I want to do something about it. And that's the human version side of the gym. That's not the spiritual guy. That's the father, and that's the husband. And that's when I think of the sisters that I've got within this work that are in my programme, that are run about this work. If anything like that happened, and there's 1 or 2 in particular that are younger, and I think if anything like that happened to anything, I'd be the exact same as if it happened to my daughter. So to protect the vulnerable, to protect the innocent as a father, as a human being, for what's right and what's wrong, that's the question that I basically realised. That's the way to answer it. Has it been 1? 1's fine. If it's 2, 3, 4, 5 and above, at that point, there's questions need to be asked and there's questions need to be answered. So it's not been easy. It's been very, very difficult in so many different ways. I think for the people that are doing this, they shouldn't be doing it. So they should be looking for a different line of work. If you're being driven by your sexual desires, then your energy's trapped in your lower centres. And this work, particularly spiritual work, is all about the heart. It's all about getting up into the higher centres. So if somebody's coming in for some sort of advice or some sort of a practice to find relief or find their own healing, if at the same time the practitioner is stuck in their energy centres which are lower and they've been driven by sex, at that point that obviously doesn't work. That can't be. That needs to be stopped. But again, that isn't really my job to do that. It's really it's something that needs to be addressed. It's obviously on a scale much bigger and much greater than I could have imagined. I had an idea. In fact, a knowing of one or two. I've done the kinesiology test myself. I can feel, and also because of my direct experience of hearing the stories, of what one of them in particular was doing before they became the life coach, and just being that guy, which is fine for standing in a bar having a couple of beers, but then if you can't turn that off, you probably shouldn't be doing this work anyway, but if you can't turn that off and it continues forward, and then you continue to hear the stories, and again, some of the messages I heard at the weekend, it's so much bigger than I could ever have imagined. So at that point, something needs to get done about it. And that's really where I'm coming from. The intention isn't to start a fight. The intention certainly isn't to have my life under threat because I'm speaking my truth. But at the same time, when I brought my inner circle in here on Monday night, it's like, what do I do here? Do I back down? Do I start to curtail what I'm saying? And every single one of them is like, that's why we're on about this work. Darkness versus light. The horrors of the world and the challenges we face, we need to stand against it. Somebody needs to stand up against it and say, you know what? No. So no talking about it. Brushing it under the carpet. How many females are going to be affected further down the line? What does that do to them? What does that do to this fucking world? At that point, somebody needs to do something. And me, although it wasn't my intention, the way that it came about, the way that it came through me when I spoke my truth, I've realised that I need to speak my truth. I perhaps need to do it in a different way, but at the same time, I can't really stop it coming through me because it feels like it was for the greatest good. This work is always for the greatest good. It can't be to protect individuals. It can't be to protect. If you're protecting one sexual predator and there's perhaps dozens of women, who knows, and the different coaches and the different practitioners that have been named Scotland-wide and the messages I've heard from worldwide, this is obviously something, of course it is. Of course it's something that's going on in the world because the way the world is just now, it's like a zoo. It's like a literal jungle in a zoo where sex has become animalistic, so of course it's going on. So at that point, what do? You just let it go and you let it run and it doesn't really matter and it's not my fault. As my teacher said to me, leave it to God. He knows him personally, says he's signed up to the dark side, he's went to the dark side, leave it to God. And at a time when the spiritual practice, this was going back probably 7-8 years ago, I thought, you know what, fair enough, I'll leave it to God. But now I think the age that my daughter's at, my daughter's 20, and I think if she went in there looking for help with her own mental health or was struggling and had anything, any intention, if somebody's got the intention, if somebody walks into your practice, I can say my hand on my heart that I have never in my life, that's a female that I've worked with, had any inclination. I mean, that you shouldn't be doing this job. It doesn't mix. It's like oil and water and you can't turn it off. These people can't turn it off. So at that point, they shouldn't be doing that. They should go back and work in their call centres. They should go back and get their job, whatever it is they were doing before this. Go and get a job in a gym and then fill your boots, do what you want to do. But you can't stand in this work. You can't tell people you're going to teach them how to heal. And at the same time, you're thinking about like the other side of stuff, how you're going to use your position to fill your own sexual desires. At that point, it needs to stop. So that's where I'm with this. That's my position on it. It's been a really, really rough week. It's been heavy going. Is that it finished? I don't know. Do they still want revenge? I don't know. I'm obviously compromised. I'm still, here. I'm still speaking my truth. I stand up for the light. I stand up for the vulnerable. I stand up for the innocent to protect that 100% for whatever reason, because of everything that's happened to me. And it's something that absolutely needs to be eradicated for this society, as well as all the other stuff that we're struggling with. So that's where I am, that's where I stand, that's my position on all of this. I think for those that have been doing it, there still is a way. There's a way to forgiveness. There's a way to, first and foremost, they need to admit it. They need to put their hands up. If it's been more than one, then you need to put your hands up. As simple as that. It doesn't matter what capacity it's in. If there's been more than one person that you've had sex with, I think at that point you need to be holding your hands up and go, you know what, it was me. At that point, the apology, and then how do you heal from that? Depending on how much it's happened, how bad it was, the negative effect that it's had on people. When you think of somebody in that vulnerability is the word that keeps coming up, somebody in that vulnerable position who's coming in and they're not well and they end up having sex, at that point it's like, how do you find forgiveness and healing from that? Very, very difficult, and then your own journey as to how you make peace with that. If you are in this work and you do want to, to serve the greatest good and you want to basically, serve the light, then there's a way to get beyond it. There is a way to absolutely find your own healing within this. For the teachers and the predators that have been doing it, there is a way to heal. There is a way to get beyond this so that everybody wins. There's nothing in vain. I really feel that. I think there's a lot of good coming out of this. There's a lot of darkness coming out of it as well. It's been hugely challenging, but it's out now. The cat's out the bag. And it really does feel that for the greatest good. I'm glad that it came out, no matter what was going to happen to me or what does happen to me in the future. Because people obviously need protected. The way I've been feeling is if there's any females that are going anywhere, if trust your feelings to begin with. Ask around as to see who it is that you're going to see, and then at the same time, if you have any doubts whatsoever, obviously you wouldn't go. But if you still need to go, I'd be taking a male figure with you. I'd be taking your dad. Especially if you're younger. If you're 16, 17, 18, I'd be taking your dad with you. I'd be taking your boyfriend with you, whether they're sitting in the session with you or whether they're sitting in the waiting room, which is absolutely terrible when you think you're going into an environment like this. Or then, as one of my students said the other night, that's one of the good things about the programme is, for anybody who has experience with that, it's online. So online is another way of doing it as well, so you can basically not have which is absolutely heartbreaking when you think that somebody would get into this environment, and they would be under threat, or even the thought or possibility that they could get to that point, so at that point, it just shows you the ways of the world, but we need to protect people, especially those who are looking to heal, those that are looking to find relief, those that are trying to find their way back, from mental health or from damage or decimation. To think if you're getting in there to find some sort of, somebody who's going to help you and it throws you back to a place that you might never get back for, that's something we need to stop. So that's where I am with this. For the greatest good always, for the love and the light and the grace that is God. Darkness versus light, absolutely. I stand for the light. A soldier of God. That's what this podcast is. A soldier of the light. A soldier for the truth in the way that it's meant to be. And unfortunately, anything that's against that, I will stand against. I will stand up against that. And there's enough people standing beside me just now as well that understand, how important this is and how significant it is that we need to say something about it. Would I have chosen it to come out this way? Absolutely not. Am I kind of glad that it's out now and it's out in the open? It feels like it, because there's going to be some stuff and some good done about it. And I'm going to leave it at that. Onwards and upwards, we keep moving forward. Really grateful for all your support, the private messages, the people that basically, said thank you so much because you're speaking the truth and, to try and help people and protect people. I'm so grateful for that, all the messages I received. We just need to keep going. We need to move forward. We need to not shine a light in the darkness because that isn't really the best way to do it. But at the same time, we need to try and get it back to the way that it's meant to be. And that's what this mission is all about. Love and light. God bless you all. Take it easy. Thank you for your time and bye for now.